Hello everyone and welcome back to a professional match of StarCraft 2. Today it's time for a top level game of Terran versus Zerg where we find ourselves on Curious Minds. Now I just realized our Zerg player has absolutely nothing on the production tab. He's going for a 12 pool. Alright, now Curious Minds is the smallest map in the current map pool of StarCraft 2, so I guess if you're gonna do it, it makes sense to do it over here. So spawning here in the bottom right-hand corner, playing with the blue Zerg drones, an absolute world-class Zerg player, and his name is Rogue. His opponent, a Terran player who, let me actually take a little bit of tea. A Terran player who is really fond of skipping an SCV scout and sometimes the Reaper scout and every sort of scouting in the early game. So if he decides to do that in this particular match, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Likewise, also a world-class player, and his name is ByuN. All right, so it's even going to be the double gas right here as a follow-up. Rogue is going to be going for, I think, a Ravager cheese. This is a build that we saw a lot back when the Ravager was first introduced, which I think was with Legacy of the Void, so in 2015. Back when the Ravager was first introduced, this was one of those builds that people just didn't know how to hold. So what you do is, against a standard Terran opener, you rush out like 3 Ravagers. If a command center is building on the low ground, it's obviously going to be killed because, I mean, a Reaper at that stage in the game and a couple of Hellions aren't really going to be able to achieve too much. Now, ByuN is going to go for an SCV scout, but he's also gone straight into a reactor, and it looks to me like he also wants to build a command center on the low ground. A couple of Zerglings were also produced. Roach Warren at this point is done. SCV still only about halfway towards the other side of the map. I mean, Curious Minds does have a very quick rush distance, so he's going to be able to get here at a reasonable time, but I do feel like ByuN is going to be in a little bit of trouble. At the very least, he's scouting. I feel like if he would have gone straight into the reactor and just not do any scouting here and just go straight into double marine production, he would be in so much trouble. So right now, he sees the roaches. He knows what he's going up against. 2 Ravagers are already coming up. Rogue is actually just continuously producing more units here. Is he gonna... Okay, he is gonna drone behind it. I was gonna say, he could go completely all in, but obviously he doesn't really know exactly what sort of build he's going up against. Looks like the command center on the low ground has already been preemptively cancelled. A couple of Zerglings here are waiting as well. SCV desperately going back home, trying to tell the rest of the Terran tribe here what exactly is happening. Sadly for him, I mean, he's already got full minimap vision. SCV doesn't actually even need to be home. As a matter of fact, it's gonna patrol back and forth over here. Yep. 2 of the cyclones, Ravager shots are going to deal quite a bit of damage. I do think ByuN probably will go for some cyclones here. I remember actually back when this build was first introduced in like 2015, Terran players would try and defend against this with siege tanks, which is not the right call. I think you have to go for a cyclone, but this is also a build that ByuN probably hasn't played against in quite some time. Okay, so there is a cyclone coming up right now. The Overlord here is one of the absolute critical features. So it provides the high ground vision that these Ravagers need to be able to even reach any of these structures. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it's 7 corrosive biles to kill a bunker. So I don't think Rogue is really going to be able to push through this. I mean, SCVs are pulled away from the main mineral line as well to try and just simply, repair whatever they can. Obviously, repairing for a Terran player is not free, so the resources are slowly going down. Second command center is nowhere to be seen, and well, the second base for the Zerg player is already about halfway done. There's that cyclone. It's gonna lock on to the siege, or to the siege tank. It's early in the morning, okay? It's gonna lock on right there to the Overlord. Zerg wishes they had siege tanks. It's gonna lock onto the Overlord. Overlord just barely survives for now. Looks like the reactor was also blown up by those corrosive biles, and I think eventually ByuN is gonna be able to defend, but this is a really nice start here for Rogue. Yeah, it's one of those builds I haven't seen too much. He's already gone for... I mean, I haven't seen it much recently anyways. He's already gone for the metabolic boost upgrade as well, so that's the Zergling speed. I mean, Cyclones can try and be adventurous against Ravagers, but as soon as Zerglings with speed are out, I mean, these units are very expensive. They don't even get a kill right there either. If the Cyclones get picked off for free, Rogue is definitely going to be back for more. So there's the second command center. There's the starport as well. So I guess in the end, this is going to be a 1-1-1. But I'm liking this start here for Rogue quite a bit. I mean, at this point, Terran is going to be slightly ahead as far as the worker count goes. But obviously, those SCVs, the additional SCVs rather, are going to be oversaturating the main mineral line. It's going to take a little bit before this command center will be mining over here. So yeah, I'm liking the spot here for Rogue more and more. If the Cyclones decided to be adventurous, all of these Ravagers would fire at the exact same time. I love as well that Rogue actually just barely tippy-toed that one a little bit further backwards. Just in case the Cyclone showed up, they would lock on to the full HP Ravager here rather than the one, you know, a little bit further in the back because they automatically lock on to the one in the front. Anyways, it's going to be a Banshee transition right here from ByuN. And a tech lab as well on the factory. At this point, by the way, Terran is super blind. You don't actually know what it is you're going up against. Right? So at this point, I mean, for all the Terran player knows, there could be just a huge amount of Ravagers and Zerglings with speed just about to be at his front door. And honestly, I am a little bit concerned. If that were to be the case, what exactly are you going to do? I mean, obviously, a Banshee is going to help out once it's out in just a little bit. So, in a way, the Banshee transition here is something that Rogue has already forced out. Because of that, he's going for the Spore Crawlers, despite the fact that he doesn't really know exactly what his opponent is going for. Since he knows that ByuN is in the darkness right now, it makes sense that you go for a Banshee just in case it's going to be another Roach follow-up. So, I love here what Mr. Rogue is doing. It is going to be the Cloaking Field upgrade as well for ByuN. Not entirely sure if I like that one all too much, but... it's better than nothing, I suppose. Already, Spores are done. Lara's already done as well. Third base, though, is very late. We don't see one just yet. Roach Speed instead starts up first. Okay. So I do think we're going to go into a third base eventually. There it is. But what are we going to do here as a follow-up if we're Rogue? Is it going to go for a Roach push once Roach Speed is done? Not really something you can do, assuming both of these Banshees will survive. Could even go for a third one. Overseer Scout will head into the main base right here of the Terran player. So at the very least... he'll get some scouting info. Banshee over here. Shouldn't get any damage done. Gets one worker. Not bad. But really good defense here, obviously, by Rogue. The positioning on that Spore Crawler is pretty much flawless. Probably not too happy that he lost one worker, but in the end, even though we've had a very action-packed early game, we are now transitioning towards what seems to be a relatively normal game. Wall-off right here on top of the natural ramp. Wall-off right here on top of the main ramp as well. ByuN is definitely not going to be overrun here anytime soon. He's going to go into the 1-1 upgrades. Third command center is already done, which I like quite a bit. Because despite the fact that his natural expo was so... or his natural expo rather was so much later, he did actually finish the third base before his opponent did. So in the end, I don't think it even really matters all too much. Rogue obviously has been going for a lot of Roach Ravager play recently. All of the Korean Zerg players love playing Roach Ravager quite a bit, especially on Curious Minds. I guess on the larger maps, it makes sense to play Mutaling Bane or at least a more mobile army, just because taking map control with those fast-paced units is much easier. On this map, it's much smaller, so yeah, you can maneuver around your Roaches and Ravagers from your base to your opponent's base a little bit easier as well. A changeling here for Rogue will scout the third CC, and honestly, I like this position for ByuN quite a bit at this point. He's just going for the good old transition. Stimpak at 0.1 seconds from finishing. Probably the most underused skill we ever see Zerg players use. So that's an ability called Contamination, which is something that the Overseers have. It's very strong, so it just basically delays upgrades in production. I mean, in the end, it doesn't really matter all too much, but maybe if this Terran player wanted to go for a 1-1 push together with Stimpak and Combat Shields, I mean, the Combat Shields are going to be quite a bit delayed. Alright, so one thing actually that Rogue could do here as a follow-up is go for a Roach Ravager Queen push. Something that definitely does have a lot of potential. Normally, these Banshees would be a little bit troubling, right? They would be a bit of a disaster, but you can see right here that the creep spread is already well on its way towards the third base of the Terran player. That being said, how many siege tanks are we on? Okay, we're at 4 siege tanks, yeah. Those tanks are going to be awesome. ByuN actually is completely ready for a push like that. He's almost inviting his opponent in here. Look at that. He's making that exact same assumption. Making a wall off over here on the right side. Making sure that there's also bunkers set up right here at the front. Bunkers can always be salvaged and you get 75% of your resources back. So, not the end of the world. One little changeling here for Rogue as well. Scouting out everything. So instead right now, I think... well, we might still see a push. I was going to say we see a Hydra den as well as an Infestation Pit. Plus a Lurker den. Alright. I was going to say Rogue will probably just play a little bit more passively. Considering he scouted it all, but... he does have a lot of units here. Love this as well from ByuN. Anticipating the movement here. So especially once the rocks in the middle of the map are down. I don't think he can, he's going to commit. No, I think that this is actually just a complete fake out. I think he's trying to sell this story to ByuN that he's going for an all-out assault to make the Terran player think that he's in a good spot. Yeah. Yeah, he's completely faking it out. I think he would have gone for it if he didn't see all of those siege tanks. You might still try and rain a couple of corrosive biles, but this is definitely not going to be that aggressive of a push. Instead, it's going to be 2-2 upgrades right now, Hive coming up, as well as the Lurker Den. So Rogue is just playing a wonderful game of StarCraft here. I love the flexibility, right, that he always shows in these games. It's really cool. One of the absolute best late-game players in the world, but also someone who's got that insane killer instinct. Fourth base right now scanned by ByuN. ByuN, though, already finishing up his own fourth command center here relatively soon, too. We do have a Nidus Worm. So the Nidus Worm is gonna, well, serve as a transport, I suppose. I mean, a couple of good corrosive biles, and I can guarantee you that Rogue is gonna push through here, but obviously this is Micro Jackson himself. ByuN is not gonna go for any sort of shenanigans like that. I love this as well from ByuN. I mean, ByuN, hello. ByuN, I'm just talking about how much I love this. You do need to respond, though. He's already set up a couple of Marines there inside of the main base to make sure this was not going to deal critical amounts of damage at the same time. Okay, couple of Marines popped inside of the Medivacs. They went across the map and are dealing a lot of damage. No kill on the hatch, but yeah, a couple of workers at the very least go down. And at the very least, he's alleviated a lot of that pressure that the opponent was trying to execute right there from the right side. In the end, though, all of the Zerg paths, they seem to lead towards Hydra Lurker Viper in the current meta of StarCraft 2. There's the Zerglings coming up as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see Baneling speed and maybe even +1 melee here as a follow-up. Terran did delay, and this is actually a big key in this push here from Rogue. Rogue decided to go for that march, right? Or that, like, quote-unquote fake march through the center of the map. It successfully delayed ByuN's 2-2 upgrades because ByuN decided to favor units over upgrades that aren't going to be useful until minutes later. So despite the fact that ByuN was quite far ahead with the 1-1, he's actually very late right here on 2-2, just because Rogue was constantly skirmishing with him, which is why that little push was quite helpful. Jimmy! Call your friends! Jimmy! Jimmy, get your friends to help out as well, man. You gotta get lurkers in the main base if you... Okay. There's no lurkers in that thing just yet. Not paying attention here to the minimap. A couple of corrosive biles there. Do connect with Medivacs, which is really not what you want. Parasitic bombs right here on the Medivacs as well, so... they have 150 life. Parasitic bomb deals 120 damage. So at the very least, these will live. I mean, that one already... Okay, did take a little bit of damage. If you're not careful, though, these parasitic bombs are going to return. I do think you want to try and get out of there. Yeah. Alright, so I do like the way that Rogue is playing this a little bit better. However, it is obviously a Zerg player right now that's sort of stuck on Rogue Ravager for a little bit longer. So he wants to trade out these units... ByuN is obviously not in a bad spot here whatsoever. It just seems that Rogue is ever so slightly more on point. Doesn't really matter, though, what your early game looks like or your mid game looks like, as long as you get into the late game with a good economy. ByuN right now transitioning towards Ghosts, adding on additional command centers, and essentially maxed out for all intents and purposes right now. He is late with upgrades, but once you eventually finish up 3-3, it doesn't really matter all too much. Notice here, like, all of the lost units here from the Zerg are being replaced with Hydras and Lurkers. Maybe some Lings and Banes in there as well. Yeah, there's the Baneling speed coming up. But not really any additional Roaches here. He can always go back to Roaches later on if he wants to. Oh, yoink! Oh, he wants to get the yoinks right there on the siege tanks. Vipers, though, do stay alive. One of the Medivacs there. That's one of those Medivacs from earlier. Did get picked off. Alright. I'm actually very impressed about the fact that ByuN is in such a good spot, everything considered, right? It felt to me like ByuN was up with his back against the wall for a while, and I feel like weaker Terran players would have already been completely sold by the story that Rogue has been trying to, you know, sell them here, but... Very impressive play here by the Terran player. Seemingly, yeah, unconcerned about the current situation. Just transitioning towards that very rock-solid late game that we've seen these top-level Terran players play recently, right? Very ghost heavy. One thing we've seen Maru do, which I loved, I hope we're gonna see that here as well from ByuN, is he started upgrading, there we go, in the armory, all of the different mech upgrades, and eventually, later on into the game, once he had a sufficient amount of ghosts out, he just transitioned towards pretty much entirely mech with ghost support, which is such a sick unit composition. I love that in that series that I casted between Serral and Maru. Bit of a longer video. Okay, that's sloppy. Very expensive units. Don't really want to give them away for free. Oh, wow. Tunneling Claws is also coming up here for Rogue. Isn't it cool how, like, the Korean Zerg players play differently than the Europeans? Like, you wouldn't really see someone like Cyril or Raynor play this way very easily at all. So he's going Pathogen Glance. He's going Double Spire right here as well. Dark likes to play similarly here to Rogue, and Dark obviously is not a Korean Zerg. I'm a big fan of this playstyle. It's super flexible. Rogue can basically remax with anything he likes. And Terran will always have to keep on second-guessing himself, right? Are you making the right units? Corrosive Bows right there land on absolutely nothing. Good snipes here as well by ByuN, though. Dealing a lot of damage. Rogue, once again, adding on more and more lurkers. The problem with lurkers, right, is that at some point, I'm a little bit scared that lurkers are just going to march over here and kill everything. At this point, that's practically impossible with the missile turret over here and those orbital commands sort of being like a walkway here, like creating a funnel for the Zerg players to go, or the Zerg units rather, to go in between, which is really good positioning. Actually, you know what? The more I'm looking at this position, the harder I find it for lurkers to be able to get through here. So a really cool player by ByuN, and ByuN is taking a page out of that book of Maru, where he's adding on a ton of command centers, plus he does have 80 workers. I've criticized ByuN recently for having too few SCVs at this stage in the game, but he is going for an absolute killer economy. Alright. Okay, Roaches and Ravagers being destroyed in the top right-hand corner. ByuN making moves. I think if you would have covered up the player names, and I wouldn't have known who's playing here, I probably would have assumed Dark versus Maru. Just by the way that these guys are playing. Okay, those snipes are so good, man. God, Ghosts are such phenomenal units. Alright, well, there's a couple of abductions here. EMPs also landing, though, on the Viper, so that was still a very good trade for ByuN. There's the one hero swarm host that we see every once in a while at this level. It's because of the way that these Zerg players use their Queen Injects. They're actually super fast with their Queen Injects. Although, you know what? APM-wise, this is a pretty respectable amount of actions per minute here. I mean, I know it's still a lot of buttons per second, but at the very least, it's not as crazy as we see some of these top-level players have. Either way, more Vipers are coming up. A Thor is being made. I love it. I would like to see a full-on mech transition. It's actually so cool. +3 was actually a little bit late here for ByuN. Didn't quite realize that. The building armor, the auto-tracking upgrades, wouldn't mind seeing those. One legend Swarm Host. So Swarm Host, it's something to do with the hotkeying. I know a lot of Zerg players have actually just un-hotkeyed Swarm Hosts entirely, just so they can't even accidentally produce them. That's how bad they think they are. Because they soak up so much supply and, you know, not very useful at this stage in the game. Ghost actually, though, ugh. I mean, a few of them did manage to get on out of there, but I have seen ByuN lose quite a few units quite recklessly. You can say the same, I guess, for the Roaches and Ravagers. We've seen quite a few of those go down for essentially free as well, but it's different, right? Like those Ghosts, you really don't want to lose them, whereas the Roaches and Ravagers at this point are very replaceable. Anyways, Broodlord Infestor is going to be the next name of the game right here for Rogue. I love it, though. The Thors are already coming up. Thors are so powerful against those Broodlords. ByuN has got all of the right units here. He's dealing a ton of damage, man. He's moving around so aggressively here with these Ghosts. Yeah, this is why you usually want to be a little bit more laid back with them. But, I mean, so far it seems to be working out. They're even destroying Spore Crawlers here, which is not really what they usually are meant for. But ByuN is getting some absolutely phenomenal trades. There's the one Swarm Host again. All right, so if you look right now at the resources lost, my God. Micro Jackson doing Micro Jackson things. Despite the fact that he has been quite YOLO there with his Ghost, he's dealing a ton of damage, and the trades have been phenomenal. How many command centers are we on? We are now on 3 planetaries, 7 orbital commands, 2 command centers, and 1 more on the production tab. All right. I don't want to do the math, but let's just assume here that ByuN has economy for days. This might be the point where you even want to start giving away some of those SCVs and just replace them with mules instead. Anyways, a Broodlords are showing themselves on the right side of the map. My God, man. Top level StarCraft 2 is so insane these days. Like, I keep on thinking back, and I know I mentioned this, like, every month in a StarCraft cast, but I keep on thinking back to 2010 StarCraft 2, where I thought it was amazing and so epic. Where we basically saw two guys sitting back for like 20 minutes, making one killer army and then clashing once. These guys have been fighting for the better part of this match. Considering we had the Zerg player trying to win at the 2-minute mark. We're now here. It's so insane. Blinding Clouds over there, dealing a lot of damage. Still though, oh my god, all of a sudden a bunch of Banelings coming in from the left side. The Thors also do have to be careful though. Yeah, they do have to be in their high impact mode. They get additional range. They're very good against air units in particular. Marines are coming up. +3 attacks are already coming up on the R. I love this, man. Full-on Marine Marauder Medevac into a bunch of those Ghosts, then eventually into Mech as the Marines and the Marauders mine out. It is, or die out rather. It's so cool. So we have 0 Marauders at this point. The Ghosts are such a good addition to that mech late game army. Even a Liberator coming up. There's the ranged upgrade, I guess. For those Liberators soon as well instead of that Fusion Core. A couple of siege tanks here in some really good positions, but eventually they'll be killed. Yeah, maybe. Zerglings actually don't have all their upgrades yet. Yeah, no, they don't actually deal enough damage. Anyways, that's just a little bit of a distraction force there as Rogue is really trying to get damage done right here. Oh my god, massive fungal growths. But luckily here, it doesn't last long enough, and actually, it may have even caused an overextension right there from the Zerg player with those brutes just flittering and flapping a little bit too far forward. Yeah, the skill level is still going up. I love it, man. Makes you wonder where we're at this time of the year, next year. That's a lot of Brute Lords, by the way. Did I just see a tactical nuke coming up? Ay. Am I gonna cast nukes in the last, like, 3 games that I've casted? Insane. I've seen so many tactical nukes in these epic late games that Terran's been playing recently. It's so good. Anyways. One of the Thors actually not in the correct attack modes there, which is actually costing him quite a bit. Okay, fungal growth right there on the Thors as well. And now the Brute Lords are all of a sudden closing the distance. We've seen in recent games how effective Thors can be against Brute Lords, but the Zerg players have been stubbornly doubling down on the Brutes instead of like going for another unit that deals well with the Thors. And I guess this is a reason, right? Rogue has been dealing a lot of damage so far, but here come the Ghosts once again. Fungal growth, absolutely critical here. EMPs did land right there on the Infestors too, so ByuN is gonna have a slightly easier time breaking through this. Eventually though, all of these big heavy hitters from the Terran players seem to be going down. The majority of the Ghosts are still available. You know what, I say that. The Ghosts do really stand their ground for quite some time. God, okay. I thought that was a pretty good spot there for the Brute Lords, but 22 Brutes have gone down. That's as many Brute Lords as Roaches in this game, believe it or not. Insane. In the meantime, by the way, ByuN, I mean, he took that personally, right? When I've been calling out his, I mean, he probably doesn't watch my casts, but it almost does feel like he took it personally when I said he didn't have enough command centers in some of his games. This guy is going wild with the command center count. I love it, though. It's so good. If you have the Axis minerals, I think it's that mindset change. My god, look at that. Here's StarCraft trivia. I will pause the game for just a second. Let me know down below in the comment section what this upgrade is called and what it does. No cheating? Okay. Did you write the YouTube comment? Alright, good, because I personally don't know what it's called. Anyways, we do have a bit of a skirmish over here. That's one of those upgrades we barely ever see. We even have now the lock-on improvement as well for the Cyclones. We'll see what it's called here in just... Oh, there it is. A rapid reignition system. It's a medevac upgrade. In case you didn't realize, medevacs can be even better than they already are. One of the upgrades we don't usually see, but apparently ByuN, he's feeling rich this game. He's just pointing at every upgrade. And he's just, yeah, saying to his manager that he wants them all. Right now, though, the Zerg army is still looking very scary. And it is an army that does have the capabilities. Oh my god, once again, actually, huge EMPs right there land on all of the Infestors. It is a Zerg army that can deal a lot of damage. Neuroparasite right there on one of the Thors. That Thor will be sniped right here as well by the Hydras. And still, man, those ghosts, the ghosts are absolutely amazing. I'm almost a little bit surprised about how effective the ghosts are. They're being so good. Anyways, there is a tactical nuke that we haven't seen fly across the map just yet. I feel like this is a pretty juicy target for it. Top right-hand corner at this point, 31 drones on it. Honestly, we are in a full split map scenario, and if ByuN keeps on playing the way that he is, yeah, look at the amount of resources. Actually insane. There's really no way for Rogue to win, right? Like, he needs to win with the army that he's got, but if this game keeps on going the way that it is, and like both players mine out their sides of the map, considering they then will have both mined 50% of the map, there's no resources stolen as far as I can see. ByuN is trading way more efficiently. He's gonna be in a much better spot. At this point though, Rogue has spent his bank. He's at 153 supply here. ByuN currently probably still got one remax in him, but it's not like he's got that much money in the bank either. I always feel like he overdid it a little bit with the command centers at this point. I know. Like he spent like thousands upon thousands of minerals on command centers, and maybe that's a little excessive. Either way, maybe he's just experimenting, right? Trying to figure out what the correct number is. Fungal growth once again on the Marines right there. Eventually, this Thor is also taking a lot of damage, but EMP once more forcing those infestors to back off. Rogue, by the way, is completely broke. Like, Rogue has barely anything. He's still mining quite a bit. If you look right here at the income tab, yeah, he's still getting 1,500 minerals a minute. So that's good, but yep, there it is. GG is cold. So despite the fact that ByuN nearly lost the game at the 2-minute mark, this game absolutely went the distance. Hey, if you made it all the way until the end of this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you very much.